everybody's incentives is tied to each other as well. So they have but no choice to work together. And they also have no choice to make sure that when we have new people, they spend the time to train the new person such that they don't screw up how things are running as well. So you don't need to be this superhuman that's there every day checking every single person, because you should only do that when your business is just starting out. When you reach a certain point, that should be the way it runs. And if you really want scalability for your company, then everybody in all your business units need to believe in the same thing.
Ian, I'm so happy to have you here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Rodrigo, for having me.
Good. Okay, so let's start by getting to know Ian. Can you tell us about your background and also about your journey till you reach here?
Okay, so if I were to summarize it, career is really split into three parts. From the age of 16 to about 29, I was in the army. Why the army? Because I didn't come from a rich background, and the only way to survive and to help my family was to join the army at a very early age, 16. Then I moved on to being in the exhibition and conference industry, where we created our own events, and I kind of focused a lot on turnarounds, where the product was not doing too well. There's no team, and they had an idea they wanted to start an event. And then for the last 3 years, I've been in the venue space. So it's army, conference and exhibitions. Then I moved to owning a venue, which is HUONE Singapore, where I am now. And that's another turnaround as well, but it's kind of different turnaround. But that has been my work history since the age of 16 to 41. Yes, right.
So in your journey, so when you left military, so you told me that you didn't know exactly what to do, and today you are the co-owner of HUONE. It's been a big journey. When you look back, what were like say one or two turning points so that helped you to reach here?
Well, I would say that I was really lucky. In the army, I had leaders who I looked up to, and they actually gave me the chance to take on projects which were way above my pay grade, so to speak. They allowed me to have the time to do my night classes. So when I went into the army, I only had an N levels education, normal level education. And then when I was in the army, I did night classes to do my diploma, my advanced diploma, my postgraduate degree. And I was fortunate to meet people who felt like I deserved the chance to do something a bit bigger. And that was replicated when I left the army as well. And I met wonderful people who gave me the chance to once again take on something bigger and to go from turnaround to launch. And I think that's how I made my way in life. And as you said, I'm now the co-owner. I didn't start as a co-owner of HUONE. They hired me as the CEO. It's a big title, but it's not a huge company, right? So they wanted me to try to turn this around, but COVID hit, and the only way that we could keep running was for me to take a stake and to inject capital in and to keep the team together. And we are successful today, not really because of me only, but it's because of the team that we managed to build. And some of the team that you see here today that you comment about is they stuck it out with me through COVID, right? We went months with half salary, no salary, when they could have easily gone elsewhere, left the industry, done something else, but they stuck it out with me. So I think I've been very fortunate to meet colleagues and mentors who have lent a helping hand and helped me through this journey of life so far. Yeah.
Good. And I was very impressed the way you told me that you had like a project and then you did a lot of turnarounds.
Yeah.
Like, how did you do? Like, what has been the key ingredient for that turnarounds?
I would normally say that people tend to glorify it a little bit. They say it's because of you being super smart or something, but it isn't the case. So most of the turnarounds were due to working twice as hard as anybody else. So I would start my day at a normal time, but I would work 14 hours a day, 16 hours a day, because I felt the only way I could try to close the gap was to try extra hard. And that time, it involved waking up at US hours, calling the US to try to promote the exhibition, calling the UK, calling the Middle East. And I think hard work. Hard work is the basis for generation of luck or greater success. I think it's very important, you know. Yeah.
So, and what do you use even still today in as a leader that you learn in your time when you were in military?
So for most turnarounds, right? So let's use HUONE. HUONE is a meeting venue. So you have meeting rooms for rent, you have a restaurant, you have a bar, obviously you have a reception area, you have a sales and marketing team. So before I started really doing the turnaround for HUONE, I spent time in each function. So I did reception duty, I did toilet cleaning, floor sweeping, I was in the kitchen chopping vegetables, I was doing sales, I was doing Google ad campaigns, I was setting up the rooms, cleaning the tables, doing the bar. Now, if you show your team that you are not going to come in, pretend like you know everything, because honestly, if you think about it, right, before I came into the venue business, I spent 10 years in conference and exhibition. I booked the venues, but I didn't set up the venue and I didn't run the venue. So I had to prove to the team that I was willing to learn all the functional areas first, and then try to combine my knowledge and to shake things up so that we can make it better. So I think that strategy generally works. But the problem with that strategy is that, one, you need to have understanding co-owners or founders who give you that time to learn first, from ground up. If you don't have the time to learn, then you must have a very strong support system to support you. So I think this is the one thing that I strongly believe in, and it's not because we are born enlightened, it's because you make many mistakes along the way, and I'm the culmination of my mistakes that I made over many years, right? Yeah.
Very good. That's very interesting. So now, I mean, you went through the COVID-19 and you working in hospitality. I mean, it was not easy. What is today the context in the hospitality in terms of talent, in terms of people?
Well, I think anybody who's watching this in July 2022, you are probably in the Great Resignation, right? But so we are not any different. The hospitality industry experienced the Great Resignation when COVID started. Hotels were shut down, airlines were cut. We had X number of crew doing swabbing roles, or they were safety ambassadors, right? So we experienced that. I had people who left us to be Grab delivery drivers, food delivery cyclists or drivers, right? So we experienced this mass exodus. Yeah. I think the one thing that most companies are feeling now is that some of these people are coming back, because some of these roles do not have any runway in terms of growth. They are roles to put food on the table. You can't blame them for leaving, because sustainability, survival is very important. So some of them are coming back because they know that there is a pathway for growth and the industry is slowing. So I think everything is transitionary. Yes.
You were a SME.
Yes.
And in terms of people, there's this paradox where when you start a business, you need good people to help you to succeed. But on the other side, you don't have the money to invest in good people. So the beginning is very difficult. What is your experience? How do you tackle this?
I think I've had the fortune and misfortune to be in two different scenarios. So I think for the benefit of your viewers, let's simplify this. There's generally two scenarios that can happen. One is you start out a startup with some experience in the functional areas of your business but no money, or you have a startup where you've already built a little war chest and you have that experience, right? Let's not talk about the people who have no experience and no money. I think that's a different group altogether. So if you're in group number one, what I would typically say is, and this is the group we should focus on, because most of people fall in this group, right? Unfortunately for you, you will be only hiring people because you have some money. You don't have a lot of money, you have some money. So you'll be hiring interns, you'll be hiring people who are really not experienced, fresh, theoretically fresh out of the school, right? And the role that you take there is really almost dictatorial, right? You decide, okay, you do this, finish this by this time, this time, this time. You set very clear boundaries. And the myth is entrepreneurs lead a great lifestyle, but it's untrue. If you don't have much money, you have some experience, you are going to be working crazy hours just to make sure everybody sticks to the deadline, like a project manager, right? So you try to grow a business by project managing at the same time. Now, the advice is there will come a point in time, typically it's month 18 or something like that, where you've learned enough, your team has learned enough, and they start to gain traction. Then you will want to keep those that can leapfrog you. You want to keep those that learn by their own on their own time, and they're able to contribute back to you, and they know more than you for the area of function. That's what you want, because you're going to transit from a company who had some money to a company with a lot more money, and you want to step back from being a dictator. Then you want to be in a position where you are managing great people who have more experience than you in a role. But these great people that you bring in will not know how all the functions tie up to each other. And that's where you come in. So, okay, you have an incredible ability, but you have a pretty big ego, okay? But you need to work this way with your teammate in this way. And that's how we tie this loop together. So I think organizations that start up really well and have that kind of longevity is when they transition from a kind of listen to me approach to, okay, what do we want to do as a group? And then you start to have leaders who rise up in the company, and they can form nucleus groups of their own, little sections and little platoons, and then they start to lead business, and then you start to have massive scale. And I think that's typically the growth of great companies.
Oh, so that is very interesting. So what you say, at the beginning, you cannot have people a lot of experience, so you have people with less experience.
Yes.
So you need to be more clear with them and
Yes.
spend more time with them,
Yes.
what they have to do.
Yeah.
But then slowly, as the business starts growing, you will be in a position to have better people, so that then more experience, and then you can start growing. That's very interesting. So now that we went into the topic of teams,
Yes.
So how do you build a high performance team in your business?
Okay, so let's use HUONE Singapore as an example. You've talked a lot about how you love the service here and the standards are really high. But in reality, this team has gone through 5 iterations or 6 iterations with people that didn't fit the mold, people that didn't fit the culture, didn't believe in what believed in. They were slowly pushed up, and we brought in new people. So that constant refresh and but refreshing of the team and pushing people up, those that are willing to take the journey with you, I think that's really important. So what you see now is a culmination of 5 iterations over a period of 2 years already. We started with full interns. Out of the batch of interns, we have 2 that remain with us that have taken up leadership positions already, and they are teaching the next generation. So I think that's healthy. So you have a kind of a boot room kind of thing. You bring them in from the bottom and they move to the top. But you also show that you don't have blind loyalty to individuals who don't contribute at all, right? If you build a system which they believe in the greater good, they love the culture, but they also like the incentives as well. So they know that if they have a teammate that doesn't perform to the standard, it's going to be detrimental to the culture, the greater good, as well as the incentives. So they normally get pushed out. So if you can build a high performance team, right, you don't need the one to be hawking over every single person, because the team itself will try to make sure that they only bring people in and they only keep people that help them achieve these 3 things.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, I really like that. So for you it's about the culture, right?
The culture.
It's about the greater good, what you said, and also there's the financial, as you said.
Yes, correct.
So, but how do you make sure that you maintain that the team maintain that standards in the team?
It's almost like growing a garden. It's also almost like exercising, right? You know, after a while, people reach a plateau. Typically, when you exercise, right? When we used to do training programs in the army, right? Physical training programs, we will always raise the bar every 3 weeks, because you reach a physical plateau. If you train every day, in 3 weeks' time, you'll reach a plateau. You've got to push them again and push them again. So you have to play the role of a constant gardener, right? You got to constantly garden your little garden to make sure that when you know they've reached a level, and that's a natural kind of tendency to settle in and to be comfortable. That's when you need to push them a little bit, remind them to keep on their toes, you know. So it is, I think the best leaders out there know that it's a constant pull and let go. It's almost like fishing, right? So you know that they know that incentives are tied to culture, they are also tied to greater good, but at the same time, you try to make sure that you give them enough room to grow, but you pull them back when they need a bit of reminder. So I don't really believe that you can let a business completely run by itself, which is why, although the team here is pretty strong, right, I still come in quite often, and almost every day I'm here, right, even though I may be ill or whatever, right, I will still be here to make sure that everything is in place, because I think it matters when they know that, yeah, I mean, he owns the place, but he's also concerned about us to make sure that the standards are met. It helps to reinforce the message down the line, right? It's not just a business, it's something which we all believe in.
Well, I really like that from the military. So every 3 weeks you increase a bit the goal, you know, so that people grow and can go further. That's very interesting. And so, yeah, when I come here to your venue, your team, I'm always really positively impressed with your team, because they're very kind, you know. Also, they pay attention to the detail. They are completely focused on the customer. But I see this across the team. So there's a lot of consistency. How do you maintain that such high level of consistency across the team?
Well, you need to be very clear with what each functional area needs to achieve. I'll give you a very simple example. Typically, in most companies, if the numbers are hit for that month, the people that will be incentivized would be the sales team, right? Maybe the owner of the company or whatever. But if you think about it, right, in the actual business, the only role that the sales teams fulfill is the first time business, right? When marketing brings the raw lead in, sales converts the first business, but after that, the service delivery is given by your operations team or your back office, whatever, right? So actually, repeat customers are actually driven by your operations team. So if you want to make this work and it's consistent, then marketing must be compensated and rewarded based on the quality of leads they bring in. Inflow must always be greater than outflow. When it transitions into sales, their job is to make sure the first-time customer, the zero-time customer, the ones that come for a site visit to book a venue, they are completely impressed. And then the ops team, they need to be measured by, for every new customer they get. For example, in the month of June, you have 10 new customers. You are able to convert that first-time customer into a second and into a third. So I expect my team to have very clear objectives. So when they have the daily briefing, we will know, Rodrigo is here, this is your 10th time actually, right? SFIC is here, second time. This company, first time. This company, fifth time, but they were away for us for 1 year. So you have to pay different levels of attention to different people to know. And if it's very clear for them, my job as a delivery team is making sure I have retention. And I will be compensated, I will be rewarded, I'll be recognized for based on retention. Then everybody's very clear. They wake up in the morning, my job is to make sure my customers come back again. My growth, my team success, the incentive for everybody is tied together across all parts. And if that's very clear for everybody and they wake up, they know that's my job, then everybody's happy, right? Because not everybody wants to be a business owner and deal with 50 things that you may or may not know. That's the problem with business owners, right? We have too many things to think about. But what you want to do is to make sure your team has very few things to think about and they do those things damn well. Right?
Oh, I really like that. So what you say is, first is make sure that the team is clear what everyone has to do, right?
To achieve the greater good.
To achieve the greater good. Then to do that really well with excellence,
Yes.
right? And then you tied the incentives into that.
Yes. But everybody's incentives is tied to each other as well.
Yeah.
So they have but no choice
Yeah.
to work together.
Yeah.
And they also have no choice to make sure that when we have new people, they spend the time to train the new person such that they don't screw up how things are running as well. So you don't need to be this superhuman that's there every day checking every single person, because you should only do that when your business is just starting out.
Yeah.
When you reach a certain point, that should be the way it runs. And if you really want scalability for your company, then everybody in all your business units need to believe in the same thing, right?
So good.
Yeah.
Good. But in this environment, I mean, they are always in contact with the customer. So with that comes a lot of challenges. So what is your biggest challenge? Leading the team, and how do you overcome?
It's a very people business, right? So if you as a service delivery, the operations team, if you have a bad day, it's going to show on your face. So you want to make sure that your leaders in the team, if they have a difficult morning or they have a difficult 10 minutes, make sure that they know once the matter is settled, turn their frown into a smile, get on with business, because you have to be very clear. You talk about a meeting venue like this, how many times do you actually talk to the customer? When they come in at the reception area, when they come out for their tea break, when they come out for their lunch, their afternoon tea break, or they go and pee, right? There are only 6 or 7 points of interaction for the customers. You've got to make sure that you are on top of your game at those 5 or 6 different interactions, because the customer will remember you, right? You have got to make sure you're on top of the game. So you have got to make sure that your team remembers this as well. And because some of them are a bit younger, they get a bit more bothered if they have a bad day. But you know the good ones, right? They have a problem, they solve it straight after solving a problem, their smile is back on, they're back into the groove again, right? So I think that's a hallmark for a good leader at the different levels.
Yeah, but what is this challenge that you face there?
It's a challenge because not everybody understands this. To get over a problem, it may take somebody who is young and hot-blooded, let's say in their 20s, for example, hypothetically. It may take them 20 minutes to get over this frustration. But in 20 minutes, the tea break will be over, FaceTime with the customer has ended, they go back into the room. They go back into the room feeling, hey, I came in this morning and everybody was so happy. But when I came out for tea break at 10 o'clock, they looked a bit down, right? So you only have 20 minutes of FaceTime. So the point is, make sure that when they go back into the last interaction with you is a positive one, right? No matter how tired you are, put on a smile, make sure it's positive. Yeah.
That is super interesting. But you as a leader, how can you assure that is maintained across the team?
So you got to go back to, you can't always maintain it happens, right? But you got to go back to leadership, by example. They've got to see you as a boss. You have 10,000 things to do, right? At every single level, the amount of load you have is multiplied. But if you can deal with all your proverbial shit, right? If you can deal with all that shit and at the same time put on a smile when the guests are there, no matter how bad of a day, no matter how bad your cash flow is, how empty your bank account looks, and you can put on a smile, they know that if he can do it, I can do it. And if the next person in line looks at their manager because he can do it, boss can do it, I can jolly well do it. It just becomes which is what we talk about, right? You don't want to screw up the man beside you in the trench. And because if your leader is doing it, you better do it too, right? And it sets a culture, right? A culture of success, a culture of pushing. You know, ultimately, we talked about the 3 things, right? Culture, the greater good, and money. Money is always at the bottom of the tree, right? People actually like to be in a place where once they're feeling safe in terms of their self-sustainability, they really want, generally I realize people want to be in a place where they're always pushed a little bit and they know they're playing with great players, because the great guys will keep pushing you to do better. And every time you do something you couldn't do last week, you have that, wow, you know, now I can do this. So that's the past, I go target something else. So it's almost like running, right? You always have somebody to pace you, right? You're always trying to find that runner who's a little bit faster than you, that you push yourself when you run. That's how we run. That's how we cycle. That's how we play games, right? So I think if you do that, it should keep the standard pretty pretty consistent. You cannot achieve perfection, right? Because some days your mom might be sick, your wife might be ill, but it's about keeping pace and making sure the team is always pushed that, and you have leaders at every level who say, this is the way we do it, this is not acceptable, the table is not wiped, please wipe it, please smile.
And I experienced that, to be honest. When I come here, I observe you, and I can see you always so present, so focused on the customer, always giving the example to your team. So I experienced that. So I understand what you're saying. So what you're saying is basically is about you need to lead by example, right?
Yes.
And when everyone is doing their best, there's also trust that it's built between the team, right? So interesting. Okay, so now, for you, there's so much uncertainty to the future. Like for you or for a leader, what do you think it's a skill that a leader needs to develop to succeed in the future, leading teams?
I think for leaders it's very important to practice. I think practice is extremely key, and practice involves you making mistakes. There are two kinds of people in the world. I belong to the group that learns from their own mistakes. I used to never bother to read too much. But I think if you can learn from other people's mistakes, and there's so many self-help books there, right? There's so many videos on video sharing platforms about how to get better, like yours, for example, right? So go learn from the best and try to extract some nuggets of truth about leadership and then practice them.
Yeah.
Because if you don't put yourself out to practice, and if you're afraid of making mistakes, then you never learn, because it's like a skill, right? I bet great leaders out there like Patton or conquerors like Genghis Khan, they had a lot of practice to get so good, to be able to lead the army, to move them, and to blindly trust that I say we're going to do this and they're going to do it. It involves a lot of practice and a lot of trust, right? So I think don't be afraid to practice and make mistakes, because you are the culmination of your successes as well as your failures, right? So I think practice is the most important thing. Yes.
So good. Okay, we are coming to the end. So now I would like to ask you, so there's people ask you many questions, but maybe what would be one question that no one asked you, you would love to answer?
Thank you for the tip, because I didn't know what to ask myself. So a good question that you came up with was, if I were to do it, why do I do this? Why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep taking on roles that are in different industries and different sectors, and it seems like mission impossible a lot of time? For example, you take over a business that's hit by COVID, like, what the hell, man? Why are you doing this? Why do you push yourself, right? I think I'm a junkie for this experience. I like the underdog. I like the success of bringing the team together and building something which I can eventually step away from, and it's still running because the legacy that you built is being lived by the people there now, and they live and breathe what we all believe in, right? So for me, that's incredible to see shows that I created still running today, to see products that I manufacture still being sold worldwide, or to see a meeting concept that was started by someone like Yvonne and still being alive today because the team lives and breathes it and has brought it to a new level, right? I don't think we should be happy about letting it live in the past, but I think it's important to allow it to have a culture and grow by itself. I think that's very important, yeah.
So good. Okay, well, that's it. Such a great conversation. I think for me, to be honest, I've been inspired with your story, the way you climbed the ladder from the military, from now becoming a CEO. Also the way you turn around many businesses, that is also super interesting. And also the way you manage your team and you build a high performance team. So that were the takeaways for me. It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Rodrigo. I think it's incredible what you're doing, trying to spread the gospel about leadership and people development, and happy to be on the show.